Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I forgot about the part. Pretend like you just
Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for taking the time out and making this happen. I'm very grateful to you for your time, all you 250 people. My name is Kartik Mehta. I am a senior partner solution architect with Amazon Web Services for supply chain and logistics. I've been AWS for about 2.5 years out of Chicago office. And my specialty is more of a supply chain planning and execution. And on top of it, from a cloud architect standpoint, I'm pretty hands-on with machine learning and analytics services. The subject for today's discussion or the interactive discussions for us is going to be supply chain data lake. And I'm going to be going into the details of it. So before I start talking about the supply chain data lake, I just wanted to create a business context for this concept. Whenever our customers say that I want to digitally transform my supply chain, what are the three value creators that we exploit in order for the supply chain to be transformed digitally? One of them is automation. And what does automation means? That really means that how do I automate my mundane daily routine processes in supply chain planning and execution processes so that instead of my resources being occupied for doing these routine mundane tasks, I can automate that process and create substantial value for my customers. And the most foundational elements that you need in order for the automation through your supply chain processes to happen is to have your data across your supply chain silos being hydrated and unified into the supply chain data lake. So in that way, supply chain data lake is the foundational capabilities that our customers have to have in order for the automation to happen. And once the automation happens, that becomes one of the value creators for digital transformation. So today's subject for our next few minutes, it's going to be how do I create supply chain data lake where I can hydrate the data from my planning, execution, and real-time shipment statuses as my truck moves from point A to point B. How do I capture the real-time statuses of my trucks, bring them into the decision-making process, and allow my planners to make that decision? So that's the subject of our discussion. The rest of them, optimization, just for the sake of discussion, optimization means that right product at the right time in right quantity in the right at the right place. You can make that happen, the supply chain optimization, by transforming your supply chain from rule-based static supply chain to machine learning-based dynamic supply chain, where I make the decisions based on the condition of the supply chain at that point in time. So that's what we call transformation of supply chain from rule-based to learning-based, exploiting Amazon SageMaker's Age Manager and the Age Computing paradigm, and then creating a digital transformation. So that is the another one. But subject of our discussion today, it's going to be solely on automation and supply chain data lake. The next value creators while we are on the slide is true innovation. How do I create true innovation? Innovation in the sense that it completely transforms the supply chain. And one of the ones that I'm in the process of launching for AWS itself is creating a logistic digital twin based on the Neptune Enterprise Knowledge Graph. And the one that I have in the process that I'll be launching within AWS in next few days, probably couple of weeks, is how do I get the data from SAP, CRM, manufacturing execution systems, expose them to a custom algorithms, and create a semantic layer that allows me to understand which data sets actually allows me to create better semantic scores. And based on that semantic score, I expose the relational schema from SAP, CRM and all to an ontological schema creations through a tool called RDB2 Onto. That's an open source tool that converts the relational schema into ontological schemas. And ontological schemas, I suggest that you do Google and learn that. It's a pretty latest and pretty modern concept of creating an enterprise knowledge graph that allows us to traverse the knowledge graph across your supply chain and understand how one element, like my supply chain capacity, my transportation capacity, affects the customer demand through my supply chain network. So that's in the process. So this is the three digital innovation value creators that allows my supply chain to be digitally transformed. And again, I want this to be interactive. I'll go, unless you raise your hands and stop me, I'll just keep moving. So please stop me and ask me questions. If I can, I'll definitely address right there. The next question, since our focus is on automation and supply chain data lake, why automation? Okay. And you can see that Amazon automates almost every silo of supply chain. Forecasting is automated, procurement is automated, the placement of inventory closer to the customer is automated, and even the customer order fulfillment is automated. Now imagine this statement that 99% of the inventory Amazon buys is automated. Billions and trillions of dollars worth of inventory is being bought with an automated process. Just imagine the value creation out there. So the automation creates substantial value for our customers by leveraging the data being hydrated from disparate systems, bringing them into the supply chain data lake and exploit it for the decision-making process. Okay. So what is the manifestation of supply chain data lake? This is the architectural pattern that I have put up as a solution guidance within AWS WWSO. So just to going into the detail, as you can see that this is my centralized supply chain data lake where all the data gets hydrated. And as you can see that I get the data into the centralized consumption unit from 3 distinct sources. If I go here, this is the AWS account provisioned by SAP for my customers, where customers transaction processing systems, transaction, my sales order, my purchase order, my transfer orders, all those transactional orders are residing in this AWS account provisioned by SAP on behalf of my customers. We get the transactional data from this SAP account into the centralized consumption unit, where my data pipeline, as you can see, I will explain that later, which allows me to consume the data at the other end as far as my supply chain planners and analysts are concerned. So supply chain execution data comes through SAP. Same way from these account, assume that this is the AWS account provisioned by supply chain planning solution provider like O9. O9 is a fairly sophisticated, large supply chain planning and execution software provider, which is AWS's ISV partner. Okay, if this account is provisioned by O9 on behalf of our customers, this account can have their demand plans, their production plans, their distribution plans. So all the planning data can reside here, all the execution data in SAP. And as far as the real-time shipment visibility is concerned, as my truck moves from here to Denver, for an example, for a transfer order, I can track at any point in time where does exactly my truck stand. Has it really left my warehouse? Has it reached Indianapolis or left Indianapolis as far as geofencing is concerned? I can pinpoint exactly where geolocation that truck stands right now. And that can happen through this specific account. There are multiple AWS ISV partners who provide these services, and one of the biggest one is Forkites out of Chicago. They are based out, they were born in Chicago, they are based out of Chicago, and they are a unicorn. They are about multi-billion-dollar company now. That's called Forkites. And they provide real-time shipment visibility across the globe. Even if you have a transportation carrier provider somewhere in Timbuktu, where nobody resides, even they can go there and make that happen. So it's a pretty sophisticated service that they provide. So we get the transactional data from SAP, we get the planning data from O9 kind of a service provider, and we get the real-time shipment statuses through IoT and the streaming pipeline into the centralized data lake in AWS S3. That's where I consume. So when I get all my data from these disparate services through the AWS account, then using the data sync, I sync the data either through a schedule or one time into the Amazon S3, and then using Glue, I create the schema on top of it, create the catalog, and then exposing it through the lake formation and Athena, I create the query and then create the dashboards. This entire pipeline is something that I will show you. I have created the dashboards that I'll show you the way I have extracted the information from all these disparate systems, created the dashboards, and allowed the planners to move from planning to execution to real-time shipment statuses so that they can make objective decisions. Okay, any question about this use case, please?
Explain what kind of decisions they're going to make.
Right. So for an example, as a supply chain planner, when I start my day, I would like to see what did I plan today? What was my plan? Okay, my plan today was, let's just say I had to release the trucks from point A to point B for the inventory to be distributed to my warehouses. So that was the plan. Planner goes into the system and executes that plan that becomes a transfer order. So here was a plan. Planner goes into the system and looks at the plan, makes the changes based on their knowledge about the distribution network and the inventory situation. And based on those changes, they release the plan. Releasing the plan becomes a transaction within SAP. For an example, a work order, sales order, purchase order, transfer order. So the planner will look at the plan, look at what he or she already has executed as an executed event. And then once there's a 3 days lead time from a shipment from here to Denver, let's just say I am in the second day of my shipment and I want to see where it stands. Is it likely to reach Denver within a day, or there is a delay that I need to pick up the phone and speak with the warehouse to make them to take a corrective action on top of it. So planner will go into the dashboards, look at the plan, compare them with what they have executed, and then make the decision in the moment based on where that truck stands right now. If the truck is likely to be delayed, if the ETA coming through this system is delayed by 2 hours, 6 hours, or a day, I need to take corrective action. And that's what the planner's daily job is, right? And in this solution that I provided, I have given planner an ability so that if the shipment is likely to be delayed, if the shipment coming up from real-time shipment status has a status that it is likely to be delayed, then we fire an SNS notification to the planner and say that this specific shipment is likely to be delayed. You better take corrective action. Okay, so we have made, and this is a primary interface, and many of our customers says that is not enough. If I'm getting 1,000 emails like this, it's not going to be reactable. So we simply tell the people that if you can take this event and update your SAP, you can go back to SAP and change the purchase order receipt date if you feel like. But changing the purchase order receipt date in SAP is not a trivial task. It's a pretty solid project that you got to take into account. So based on your business processes, your technology infrastructure, you can take this signal called delayed shipment and use it whichever way you want in your enterprise to take corrective actions. One of the simplest one that I have offered is to send a notification, right? Okay, moving on to the next slide. So this was the use case where I identified the ISV, planning, execution, real-time shipment. The same architectural pattern can be leveraged for other use cases. If I am an enterprise and if I want to cross my company's boundaries and start collaborating with my transportation service provider, warehouse service provider, HR service provider, I get out of my company's boundary and start collaborating with the external parties. In that case, the same logic happens, that I have my warehouse service provider, transportation service provider, as long as they have their data in AWS, and as long as their platform is hosted in AWS in any shape or form, we can extract the data and bring it into the centralized consumption account in order for the decision makers to make the decision. Same way, if I want to stay within my boundary, you can create a cross-category dashboard as well. Many companies, I don't know about the Morningstar and other companies, but for a retailer, every retail category is a business unit. Soft good, hard good, home furnishing. These are all business units within the retailer, and they have a CEO for that. CEO for hard good, CEO for soft good. They have their own P&L. Now, if I were a CEO if I were managing director, and if I want to see how my different categories performing, I can use the same use case and create a cross category dashboard where I can see that how my soft goods works with my hard good, with my home furnishing, and make my budgeting, my financing decision. How much do I allocate to this business unit? So you can use that use case with the same format. So 3 use cases: ISV use case that I just spoke about, planning, execution, real-time shipment. If I want to cross my company's boundaries and start collaborating externally, that's where I can use. Within my company's boundaries, I can have a different business unit hydrating the data into the centralized unit and make a cross-company, cross-category visibility for the decision makers. So these were the use case. Yes, please.
What is the on-prem data?
I have categorically avoided that because that definition,
It's too wide.
every customer that I go to, their definition of on-prem data and the types of data is so varied and vast that I simply say that, whatever you say, you may have an application, you may have a database, you may have a manufacturing shop floor where there is a small server which is printing the labels for something. So it can be almost anything. It can be a gigantic SAP software which is being hosted in your premises, or it can be a small server that simply prints a label for something.
And you have to customize your pipeline to accommodate
To accommodate that, right. And for that, you can see that I do not use the data sync in that case. It has to be pretty structured pipeline based on what you have on your on premises. I cannot just simply say that you just simply use data sync and sync it. It's not going. There is a more concerted efforts needed in order for the on-prem data to be brought in based on what you have in your premises. Please.
Worry about data transfer, you gotta worry about ETL,
Exactly.
all that stuff.
And your data locality, your compliance and everything. So many factors come into this play that I generally say that, you define what your on-premises data is. And in the next meeting, if you become very explicit about what that means, I can provide more prescriptive guidance, So this is the supply chain use cases. Now, the same way I showed you how you hydrate the data from disparate systems. If any one of you are familiar with Athena federated query, that is also being embedded into the solution that I'm talking about. So what it does, let's just say that my planning data is in EMR as far as Hadoop infrastructure is concerned. Okay, my transaction processing system, let's just say my SAP data is on MySQL, and my real-time shipment statuses are on DynamoDB. If my different types of data are on different types of databases, this is Hadoop, this is NoSQL, this is NoSQL database, this is my RDBMS. How can I extract the data from different types of databases, different types of data, expose them to the Athena federated query, and create one query that extracts two fields, for example, two fields from this database, two fields from this database, and two fields from this database, bring all these six fields into Athena federated query, and I can create a dashboard whereby two fields are based on my planning system in EMR, my execution system in RDBMS, and my real-time shipment status is in NoSQL DynamoDB tables. So Athena federated query allows you to federate the data from across multiple different types of databases through a Lambda serverless application. These are created by AWS. You don't have to create them. You simply have to select them. You create a small Athena federated query, and you use this pre-built AWS created serverless application. You can extract the data from all these different types of databases with you having to learn and do almost nothing. So this is the power of Athena federated query that allows the data to be federated along with the supply chain data lake that I just highlighted. Okay. The next one, this architectural pattern also supports the these architecture pattern as well. So what it does that if my operational system, if my supply chain planning is done through O9, supply chain execution is done through SAP, and my real-time shipments are done through Forkites. If each one of these operational system, if they hydrate the data into this Amazon S3 data lake, you can have all these three S3 data lakes tied to a separate operational system. So data moves from these operational systems to these data lakes. But your consuming application on the other side doesn't have to move the data in order for one dashboard to be created that spans across these data lakes. You can create the catalogs, and using the mesh architecture, using lake formation, without moving the data, you can create the consuming application that takes a couple of fields from here, couple of fields from here, and 3-4 fields from here, creates the dashboard that doesn't move the data. Data simply remains in the Amazon S3 based on the respective data lakes. You simply create a query through lake formation, through this nested architecture, and bring the data back without moving the data. It simply retrieves the data without moving the data. Okay, so this is the mesh architecture that is being supported by this. Now, this is a little bit of a more detail now. Margaret, please keep me a tab on the timing, please. So it's about 20. Okay, perfect. So we are out of 250 people. If few of them leave, I'll be more concerned about it. So when you register the shipment, I've given more detail to this because many of our supply chain customers are very inquisitive about the way I can get the real-time shipment statuses. So the way you can get the real-time shipment statuses in supply chain is through two processes. One is you have to take the shipment data from SAP and register those shipments with providers like Fourkites, like the provider that I just spoke about, the one in Chicago, Fourkites. So how do I register the shipment using API in Fourkites? From SAP, you extract all your transfer orders. My transfer orders from my plant to manufacturing facility to distribution center. I extract all my transfer orders from SAP and put them into S3 bucket through API gateway and Lambda. And then through step function and glue workflows, I create this, I pick up this raw data and make them very specific to what I need for this registration to happen. And what I mean by that whenever a shipment has to move from point A to point B, you got to know the mode of transport. Is it an ocean transfer? Is it a railroad? Is it a rail? Is it an air? Is it a road transport? Is it an LTL, FTL? Is it parcel? So there are multiple modes of transport that the product moves from point A to point B. When you register the shipment, you got to tell the Fourkites that I am tracking this shipment through this transporter who is using ocean mode of transport. Okay, you got to be very explicit about it. So this is what we do here in this workflow. We learn from SAP what is my source, what is my destination, what is my mode of transport, what is my carrier, what is the tracking number of carrier. I get all these details from SAP and create this registration file, and using managed service Kafka and Lambda, I ping a specific endpoint here. And which endpoint do I hit in this integration depends upon my mode of transport. These service providers like Fourkites have a specific endpoint for mode of transport. If you are shipping the product through ocean, you got to ping this API. If you are shipping the product through rail mode of transport, you got to ping this API. So based on that, we are going to register the shipment. Once the shipment is successfully registered, the Fourkites kind of an aggregate provider provide their own unique identifier that says that going forward, you are going to be able to track this shipment based on my unique identifier. Any question? I know that, you guys are not.
FTL, what does that mean? Full truckload?
Yeah, full truckload.
Truckload.
Yeah, FTL stands for full truckload. LTL stands for less than truckload.
More than one mode. How's that work in your industry?
Well, yeah, in that case, that's a pretty solid question. If it is a multimodal transfer, then at any given point in time, my transporter, my Fourkites people will track only one mode of transport. Like for an example, let's just say that I'm shipping something from Chinese factory to Los Angeles port. So Chinese factory to Los Angeles port, it's an ocean mode of transport. Once it arrives to Los Angeles port, to my distribution center in Chicago, we call it middle mile. The first mile is from Chinese factory to Los Angeles port. That's a first mile. Middle mile is called Los Angeles port to my regional distribution center. And the last mile is called from my regional distribution in warehouse to, somebody in northern Chicago, somebody in Indianapolis, somebody pretty close by. It's called last mile delivery. Okay. So if it is from Chinese vendor to distribution center in Chicago, it will be broken down into multimodal, and each segment, each leg of the shipment is going to be tracked on its own. So I will have to register the shipment for ocean. Then I'll have to register the shipment because the carrier may be different. The carrier who moves the product in ocean may be different from the carrier who moves the product inland. Okay. So for that,
You don't track until the shipment arriving in Los Angeles.
no, we do track the ocean shipment through ocean carrier. So my first registration has to happen with an ocean mode of transport. Okay. And once the ocean mode of transport completes, then this Fourkites provider has a sequence, has a way of understanding that this specific shipment, the first leg is through an ocean mode of transport with this carrier. This is the tracking detail that I'm getting either through ELD or API. And once that mode is done, and once that specific shipment is considered to be an arrived, then the next leg starts with the middle mile. So first mile as a separate leg, middle mile, and last mile. And these are three distinct tracking systems within their because each one of those carriers will have one carrier ocean transporter is through a transponder on the vessel itself. The rail mode of transport may be through a different mechanism, through a geofencing, for an example.
So basically, yeah, you have the ocean going, and then from the port of entry by rail, probably to a warehouse in Chicago,
Exactly,
and then the trucking that goes to Indiana to.
exactly, for my last mile,
Right.
you know.
How do you track? Have internal processes internal to go from the fast mile to the middle mile and from the middle mile to the last
Generally what happens that the question, her question was that how do you maintain the integrity of those three legs, you know? If I'm moving from ocean to inland to my last mile delivery, what keeps all this track? In general sense, whenever an international shipment needs to be tracked, there is always a freight forwarder involved in that, you know. Yeah, a freight forwarder, and generally it is freight forwarder's job to employ the first mile from ocean, clear the customs, okay, and there are statuses within the tracking that it has reached the custom, it has cleared the custom, it is on the truck from custom warehouses to the freight forwarder's own warehouses, and from there somebody with the truck comes in, and that's my second mile starts. So there are distinct statuses within the freight forwarders ecosystem that tells me that my goods have reached the port. Now it is under custom. It may stay at custom for 6 days, you know. So based on that, as long as it stays in the custom, the freight forwarder who really tracks the entire system will be integrated with the Fourkites kind of a system. If they track their status through the API, that specific ocean shipment will show that it is at the Los Angeles port for last 6 days.
How do you predict that in the planning when the shipment is going to be delayed or those statuses?
That's beautiful. So Fourkites has the data from multiple shippers. You know, Fourkites, the greatest asset that Fourkites has is for a specific leg, specific lane from Chinese factory. For an example, somewhere in Beijing, I really don't know what the cities are, coastal cities, but from somewhere in Beijing to Los Angeles, it's a lane. That lane, those Fourkites must be tracking the data like thousands of shipments a day. So they have the weather conditions, they have the ocean performance, they know that these forwarders, these carriers have these performance standards. They are always going to be late by 3 days. These lane, you know, from China to Los Angeles lane is always weather prone. You know, they have that data, they predict the ETA with the data, and they say that your expected time was Monday, but looking at these, the ETA may be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they will definitely let you based on their machine learning. And the reason they are more powerful because they have lots of data. They have tons of data from all carriers, you know, and data is the oil for a machine learning engine. The accuracy of the data depends upon the quality of features that are being used for the learning. And once the shipment is registered, the Fourkites will send a request to carrier now. Fourkites will say that, okay, this company Johnson & Johnson has sent me this carrier, this shipment tracking request. You, Mr. Boyle is a big logistic provider. You, Mr. Boyle, do you have this data? Is the shipment picked up? If the shipment is physically picked up at Johnson & Johnson, the Boyle transportation carrier will send an API update to Fourkites and say, now I have picked up the goods at the Johnson & Johnson facility. And that's where the tracking will start. The moment they pick the status, once they pick up the item and change the status, Fourkites gets the status change, and those are all going to be sent back into the data lake. And if the status of the shipment has the delayed as one of the parameters, then in our solution we send an SNS notification within the streaming pipeline. Like here within the IoT core, if the status of the shipment is delayed in the SQL statement itself, then I fire a rule that sends the SNS notification to the respective people. And we can also launch machine learning. Again, the reason this is not very attractive, because if you are hiring Fourkite's kind of a aggregator, then their ETAs are more powerful than the one that you can probably come up with, because they have pretty aggregated data sets across the globe. Fourkites has millions of transportation service provider integrated into their system. Okay, but if you don't have it, once the data is in S3, I'm sorry, I should have removed the BMW. I'm pitching them right now. You feel as though you haven't read the name of the customer. So once I have data in the centralized consumption account, I can send that data to the training job through the create training job API, and then train the model, and then using the SageMaker inference, I can send the inference request to the train model endpoint, and then store the predictions, the inferences into the S3 bucket itself. And I can, and if the time permits, I can show you I have created this model in 15 minutes in SageMaker canvas. Okay, this is a binary classifier using XGBoost binary classifier. Whether shipment is going to be delayed or not. Okay, it's not a regression problem. So this is about to end my presentation part, and I'll take you to the console. When you look at the console, this is a very simple supply chain that I have created within the data sets. I have a plant called LAX plant that ships the product to Chicago ORD RDC through less than truckload or FTL through Boyle as a carrier. And then from ORD, I am doing the last mile delivery to my retailers using FedEx parcel mode of transport. Okay, just so that when you see the data, you can really create a mental map about the way the supply chain is structured. Okay, now if you don't have any question, I'll take you to the console and I'll show you the way I've structured this solution. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. There is nothing, I mean, it's all dummy data. So before I get started, you can see that I am getting, these are my Isengard accounts within AWS. And you can see that I'm getting the SAP data from an AWS account. This is a very distinct account that hosts the SAP data, okay? The transactional data that I just spoke about. This is the account, this is the AWS account that hosts the planning data from O9. So these are different AWS accounts from where, through cross-account access, I create the centralized consumption data lake, okay? So this is the end result that I'm going to show you. So these are my bunch of dashboards that I've used. And this is the graphical representation of the supply chain using QuickSight. And this is the graphical representation based on the geospatial data. These are not hard coded. These are the longitude and latitude based the graphical representation on the QuickSight. And you can see that this is the small supply chain that I just showed you in the PowerPoint slide. I have a plant here that manufactures the product that ships to Chicago. And there are a bunch of customers clustered around my distribution centers that I do my last mile delivery out there. Okay, so this is a small, simple supply chain scenario that I wanted to create the dashboards for. So now if I right click on this and drill down to my plants, it will show me only the manufacturing facilities within my supply chain. So this is my manufacturing facility. Over and above the regional distribution, I have manufacturing facility here and I have another manufacturing facility. If I right click on manufacturing facility, and if I drill down to my production plan, it shows me what are the production plans at this manufacturing facility. So this is my product. This is the product location that I just spoke about. And this is the manufacturing facility. And this is the amount. Now these data, if I go back to my slide, these data is coming up from these account. Okay, planning data is coming up from these AWS account provisioned by O9 kind of a planning provider. Okay, so it is a cross account access. I'm just giving you more details so that you can create a mental map out of it. So once I'm in the production plan, I need to drill down to the distribution plan. How do I distribute my inventory to my distribution centers? So I right click on that and drill down to the distribution plan. The same data, production plan and distribution plan, are coming up from my planning provider. It's from the same account. Now, as a planner, as you asked me the question, how do the planners make the decision? So now I looked at my plan. This is what I had planned a week, 10 days, month ago. Now I want to see the execution. How does my execution look like? So I am on the distribution plan, and I right click on it and say, show me my ERP transfer orders. Those transfer orders are my execution elements. I executed already. So these data that you see is actually an SAP data. This is the SAP delivery numbers. These are the carrier tracking numbers. This is the carrier name Boyle. This is the manufacturing facility from where I'm shipping the product. This is the destination location, and this is the arrive and ship date. This is the reflection of the data that I get from SAP kind of a transaction processing system. And these data is coming up from a different account that holds the SAP transactional data. Okay. So now our planner has looked at the planning, planner has looked at the execution. Now planner's next question is that for this specific transaction, for this specific transfer order, where does it stand? This SAP delivery number ending with 36 and this Boyle tracking number 46001, where does it stand right now? Is it in Denver? Is it somewhere in Indianapolis? Where does it stand? So planner wants to know about it. So planner right clicks on it, on this specific tracking number, and it takes it to the shipment status from aggregator. So these data now coming up from the third account, which was reflective of the account provided by Fourkites. Okay. And this is the real-time shipment status. You can see that for these SAP delivery number, for this tracking number, these are the shipment, these are the distinct shipment statuses. As the shipment moves from point A to point B, and as the carrier starts pinging me the status of it, I can real-time see it and update this. So now planner knows that this specific shipment stands at this, it is already delivered in this case, but it can be anything else. Okay. So now planner has drilled down from planning to execution to real-time status, pick up the phone and talk to the carrier, talk to the provider, and take corrective action. Now, if the shipment status is delayed, now, if I want to see the real, if I go one step back and say for this tracking number, show me the real-time shipment statuses in a pie chart format. So this shows me all the shipments being shipped real time from this manufacturing facility to this distribution center. Okay. And these are the distinct statuses that I identified through the streaming pipeline. The real-time streaming pipeline that I just showed, I have captured them. So you can see these are the distinct statuses of my shipment. Some of them have been completed, some of them have been delivered, some of them are delayed. Now, if these shipments are delayed, I can right click on that and go to the shipment detail and see what are the shipments which are delayed so that I can take corrective action and meet my SLAs with my customers. Okay, so these are the shipments which are delayed. Now the very last point for our conversation, how do I get the real-time shipment statuses as a simulation? How am I doing it? I'll show you that part. So if I go to, this is the IoT simulator that AWS provides, even you all guys would have an access to it. So in these, I have created a simulation that my truck moves from point A to point B and sends me this data every other second. Okay. So if I start this simulation, if I click on that and say start simulation, once I click on that, this is the IoT core. This is the topic that I will say, you will see the real-time streaming data in this format here. In next few minutes, I'll show you. So let me subscribe to the topic. So this is my topic that I'm subscribing to in the IoT core for the real-time shipment statuses. Oh, I think it is. Yes, please.
IoT core because this is an edge computing kind
Exactly, and I don't have an access to Fourkites API endpoints. So to simulate as if my truck moves from point A to point B and sends me the IoT sensor data, I'm doing it. Fourkites has not been kind enough to give me access to their API where I can simulate. We have a, we have a lot of love-hate relationships everywhere. So I have subscribed to this specific topic, and this topic is actually my truck. A specific truck is my topic, and every sensor data being streamed in that topic is actually the status of my shipment. So I'll show you how the real-time streaming happens. In next few seconds, if I click on, you will see the real-time shipment status is coming here. And when you see the delayed shipment here, I will receive an email on my email notification. So let me start the simulation. So now if I start the simulation, it will start sending this data. Let me show you my schema definition. So this is the schema that this simulator will send. This is the schema that it's going to send. My aggregator ID, and you can see that the shipment status, this shipment status, this status code, this status code is what drives the entire pipeline. So this is the IoT core that is going to start streaming the real-time shipment data based on this schema definition. These are simulations, these are not real, okay? So now if I go back to my simulations and start simulations, I select this simulation and I say start simulation. Okay, now in next few seconds, the moment I see that the simulation is running, I will take you to the IoT core and I'll show you the real-time shipping data being streamed into the pipeline. You can see the data has started coming in. Did you see the data started coming in underneath it? So you will see that the data will change here. You can see now it's delivered. Now it is completed. So now the real-time shipment status is from the truck is being piped through IoT core and fire hose into my system right now. And as soon as the shipment status, if any shipment being, so it is delayed, you will see that there will be an email notification on my inbox. So if I go to my inbox, you will see bunch of delayed shipment. Did you see that? Bunch of notifications here for the delayed shipment. So as my truck moves from point A to point B, it starts sending that geofencing and statuses. And as soon as the status happens to be delayed, I capture within the streaming pipeline the status and send an SNS notification to the decision makers.
Truck or is just the truck?
No, different statuses.
Oh,
It
I was wondering how it goes from complete.
becomes illogical. It becomes illogical that all of a sudden from complete it becomes in route. But since this is a simulator, I did not find a better way of doing it. So sometimes it becomes illogical. In one status, it says that I have delivered the truck, and in another second, it says I'm on the road. So it becomes illogical, but I had no other way of showing it other than this one. But this simply shows you the way the real-time truck data through the IoT core is streamed into the S3, and the streaming pipeline captures the status and sends the notification. So now with this, we can use the native AWS services to create a pipeline whereby my supply chain planning, execution, and real-time shipment statuses can be unified into a centralized AWS S3 data lake, and then build the dashboards on top of it for the planners to make decisions. So that was the subject of this session.
No, when you say truck, you're talking about this 50-footer.
Exactly.
You're talking about the delivery truck, right?
No. It can be any truck. It can be a delivery truck. It can be a last mile delivery truck as well, as long as there is a sensor attached to it and it can sense the data either through an ELD or an API. In US, every trucker, especially for 53-foot trucker, has to have an ELD by law, the electronic logging device, where they have to log when they rested, when they slept, because by law, a trucker cannot drive more than 8 hours. If they drive the truck more than 8 hours, it is illegal in this country. So they have to maintain the log, and that log actually tells where they are. It can even become a status of the shipments as well. So many times Some of the transporters do API, some of the transporters do ELD, some of the transporters carrier providers do EDI, the old way of doing the things. So based on that integration, the Forkites is the one that really sends the shipment statuses.
FedEx truck, right?
Amazon,
The large,
we don't use FedEx trucks.
you know?
No, Amazon uses Amazon trucks.
Other sellers.
Other sellers will use our trucks. But there is no pride in it. Again, okay. So I'm not taking pride in the fact that we have made everybody nameless. Okay, but the fact is that we don't use anybody's truck. Everybody else uses our trucks. But we do ship other people's product. Yes.
How about flight?
We have our own. I mean, Amazon Prime has more than about 100 plus aircrafts right now. You know, I was just a couple of days back, last weekend, I was in Phoenix for Amazon. This t-shirt, I got it from there. Amazon Business stands for small, medium-sized companies who want to outsource their entire procurement to Amazon, whereby they're buying, shipping, everything is done through Amazon Business. In that meeting, I met with Amazon Freight, Amazon Supply Chain, Amazon Business, Amazon Books, and Amazon Web Services. We were all together in one room attending 200 plus customers in Phoenix. And if you listen to the entire spectrum that we have covered in supply chain and logistics, it is just phenomenal. Give you an example of it. A lady came to my desk near the end of the day, and since I'm not disclosing anything, you know, this is but this is, I'm not going to disclose any confidential. She said that her company is in the process of procuring the EV charging stations from Taiwan. Okay. And they want to deploy that EV charging stations across the North America, Europe, US, and capture the market. It's a private equity driven company, you know, and pretty large company. That lady decision maker came to me and said that this is my confidential information. How can you help me? So what we suggested, that they already are a customer of Amazon Business. So from Taiwan to US, we will use Amazon supply chain to track the entire ocean freight and everything through Amazon supply chain. Once it reaches the centralized warehouse like Chicago, where all the EV charging centers are going to be dumped as a middle mile, that's where Amazon multi-channel fulfillment comes into play, whereby even though you are not a prime customer, you can rent warehouse spaces and use all the logistic services to put all your EV machines there. So that is so from Amazon supply chain to Amazon multi-channel fulfillment. Okay, and from there you can do the last mile delivery to wherever you want to deploy those EV machines through again Amazon Freight. And once the machines are deployed, and if they need the predictive maintenance, then Amazon Web Services comes into play for machine learning. So this is the way that entire Amazon Freight, Amazon supply chain, Amazon multi-channel fulfillment, and Amazon Web Services will allow the items to be procured from Taiwan and deployed wherever they want to deploy, with some spares to be kept near the warehouse where the EV center is. Alibaba is not a player for us at all right now. Alibaba is not even in our horizon. Our biggest competitors, if you ask me, are Azure and GCP. The rest are nameless. I mean, they're all big companies, but they have not threatened us so far.
Showing where logistics professionals are trying to optimize an outcome or delayed shipments.
Right.
But what if they want to also like reduce carbon footprint? There's
Beautiful.
huge, like, opportunity there.
Right, and sustainability right now is a very big word in Amazon as well. You know, Amazon has a pretty solid moral capacity, whereby we have pledged a pretty solid targets for our sustainability goals. When it comes to sustainability, forced labor, child labor, those are all sustainability where I as a supply chain professional don't get involved. But where I can make, or at least in a small capacity where I belong, where I can make an impact, is in the carbon emission. Okay. But our sustainability within AWS right now has a focus on forced child labor, counterfeits, CO2 emissions, compliances. Where I come into play is through optimization. If I optimize my supply chain through machine learning in AWS, which means that instead of using 2.5 trucks, if I can use 2 trucks and still meet my customer demand, then half a truck worth of emission is going to be reduced, right? And we have a calculator that for this body size, the truck body size, for this truck body size, for this mileage, for these conditions, this is the impact on the carbon emission. And we have a calculation that if you reduce your carbon footprint by 1%, what is the impact on your bottom line and top line as well? How does it impact my profitability? And how does my customer get excited about my sustainability commitment and they use my services more often to impact my top line? So we have those, and there is an enormous focus right now in AWS. I believe that out of 10 people being hired right now, probably 3 to 4 will be sustainability people. Huge sustainability hiring. Anybody who knows how to spell sustainability will probably be hired. Seriously. See real social responsibility, real impact. And those were the days when sustainability was a buzzword. But now, people are becoming more conscious that I don't want to leave the world to my next generation in the same way as it is right now. Otherwise, we all will carry some debt forward. So I believe that there is a tremendous impact, and supply chain and sustainability are so intertwined. Forget about forced labor and all. This is something that I don't believe there is any systematic solution to that. If somebody is using child labor, I don't know how do you create the system to resolve this. I really don't know yet. But if somebody uses more trucks, if somebody uses their machines less optimal, like if you go to India, I am from India, and if you go to India, most of our equipments, most of our trucks and scooters and rickshaws, they are emitting greenhouse gases to an extent that you will get mad. If you are standing at the intersection, your eyes will burn because of the carbon dioxide, because of those gases. It is at that level. If we don't stop it, the next generation is going to go down the toilet. And we are the biggest polluter out there. They are the biggest polluter. So supply chain has a tremendous role to play in sustainability. No doubt about that. And the same way sustainability has a tremendous role to play in the design of supply chain. Any question? I think all the large crowd in front of me.
So next Monday and Tuesday is a Prime Day.
Right.
So how does this kind of event impact your data flow?
That's a good question.
The plan might change.
Well, but Amazon's supply chain is one of the world's wonder, I would say, because I know we call it SCOT, SCART, supply chain optimization technology within Amazon, not AWS. Within Amazon, it's called SCART team, SCOT, supply chain optimization team. And that team is on top of everything. Every inch of a warehouse, every inch of a truck, they just use it to the fullest extent. I don't believe there is any opportunity for sustainability to be adhered to. Where sustainability is to be taken into account is where I promise 1 day delivery or 2 day delivery or the next hour. Now the time has come that it used to be 2 days delivery as a normal. It became 1 day delivery and now it is 3 hours delivery. And I'm like, you place an order and I need to be delivered in 3 hours. The expectations are coming so low. So people will start shipping the product less than truckload. My 3/4 of the truck will be empty, but I need to meet my customer commitment. That fight to win the customer is actually dragging the people away from sustainability commitments. That expectation has come down so much. I don't believe if somebody tells you that I'll ship you in 2 days, you will probably not go to the website anymore.
Is it the policy to get at Friday? Do you plan a bigger inventory?
Oh, absolutely. The planning is happening 6 months ago. These Prime Day coming up might have been planned 6 months ago, because our vendors needs to schedule their production lines. Our freight forwarders have to line up their act together. It's a long cycle. It's a long cycle. And Amazon, I showed you the numbers. I think it's about 450 million transactions a second. I mean, you just imagine the number of transactions that our system handles is just mind-boggling, and with zero error. Have you ever encountered that you ordered something and it was completely bogus, or you ordered for 3 hours and it came up 3 days later? Very hardly. I, being an Amazon customer, haven't seen this at all. Not as an employee, but as a customer, I have not experienced it.
And how that extra inventory impacts the
We don't we don't
sustainability.
keep extra inventory. That's the beauty of it.
Oh,
We keep only minimum required and closer to the customer. Demand planning is powerful. We do the demand planning to the greatest extent so that we know what the anticipated demand for the product is. We give that demand to our sellers. All the sellers on Amazon.com get a forecast from Amazon forecast, and we let them know that the likelihood of this demand to shoot by 300% is 90%. So you better schedule your manufacturing facility, you better schedule your transportation and keep this product ready. But don't keep more than 90% because you may not need more than that. So the forecasting, demand planning is the driver for supply chain. If you have an ability to forecast your customer demand as accurately, the rest is all physical execution. And Amazon actually sell our Amazon forecast service is based on that engine. The same engine that Amazon.com uses to give sellers that forecast is the same absolute engine that Amazon forecast is.
That also from machine learning?
Yeah, it is a machine learning. It's a trained model. And that Amazon forecast trained model is trained on healthcare and life sciences, retail, consumer packaged goods, oil and gas. You name an industry vertical, that forecast engine has the engine trained on that. Humongous engine, unbelievable engine. And you know that machine learning's accuracy depends upon the number of features that you train it on. And Amazon forecast is just unbelievably powerful. And it's not a statistical forecasting engine. It's a deep learning recurrent neural network, RNN. It's a deep learning framework. It's not a statistical rule-based engine. It learns the machine learning way. It learns the trends and then forecast. Yes, sir.
We can train it, man. We can train it to forecast the lottery for next year.
Well, Amazon Bezos would probably not need it. He doesn't, all of us would probably need. But you need the data. If you have the data where these characteristics will make a winner, you can train that model, but we don't have the data. The data is allowing us to forecast. Yes, sir.
So when 2020 pandemic happened and all the models must
Right.
what was the time it took to sort of get predicted again?
Uh,
Did it cover quickly or did it take time?
No, I think it took quite a lot. The Amazon scale actually allowed it to hide that deficiency. The pandemic increased the demand to such an extent, that deficiency in the machine learning models was hidden because the demand was astronomical. But then we train the model to take into account these kind of exogenic shocks. These are macroeconomic shocks actually. Pandemic was a shock. It is not a trend. It was a shock. And how do you factor your shock into your model? And that's what these people train, that SCART people, the supply chain optimization technology, SCART people train that. But because of our scale and volume, those things can be probably be quite hidden from the normal people, the amount of excess inventory that we might be carrying or lack of inventory. But supply chain is an amazing faculty. The application of technology in supply chain is also an amazing category. And AWS is pretty well suited for where we are right now. So I see a great future in supply chain and logistics for Amazon, for AWS.
Architectures, these use cases,
Mhm.
they operate at various scales, enterprise? Oh,
Absolutely, absolutely. It can be any scale. You can have, you can have only your S3, your cross account S3 may be just one role. For an example, if it is a small company, if your S3 has only one object type, let's just say planning data, not even an execution or real time shipment, you can still use the same architecture to get the data. Now I'll have to unlock it. It's okay. You don't want to see that anymore, right? So this architecture can be scaled of course there will be some changes to be made, but this is a scalable architecture. This is more scalable, secure architecture. The IAM role that I have created for this data sync from one account to another is a secured account. Is through cross account IAM access that I'm allowing that data to be transported.
So, this is more like from a customer perspective.
Right.
So Prime membership used to guarantee 2 days shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't guarantee that anymore. Is that because of shortage of supply chain or just a policy?
I have no idea. I really, as far as policy matters are concerned, I have no idea. I can't even spell that out. I don't have an authority to spell out Amazon.com's policy. So I'm really not into this. If they have changed it, I don't know if they have changed it, or if they have changed it, maybe it's across all Prime community. And reasons can be n numbers. The biggest reason may be, the volume. And we are finding it very difficult to even find the truckers, the transporters. The last mile delivery is in deep stress right now. We don't find the truckers to ship the product from street to street. If you see that Amazon trucks, that they're all entrepreneurs. It's not like they're all people who buy that truck on their money and they run that logistic business. We provide money to buy the trucks. Yeah, like I decide that within the north, I live in Schaumburg and Hoffman estates, and if I believe that I need to buy 3 trucks and hire my family members and go into that, Amazon will provide you money to buy the trucks even. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that the Rivians one are out now. That's the sustainability commitment.
Different plate number.
Technology with your competitors?
Which technology?
You sell the services, for example.
No, AWS. There are certain things that I can't tell you, but I can stay within my constraints and tell you that the short answer is no. And the reason it is no, because it is not doable. Okay. Amazon is one of the world's biggest and smartest and most powerful supply chain machinery. But we don't have any application or a software that we can go out and sell. It's a bunch of microservices. It's a millions of microservices functioning independently of each other to make tiny decisions. Okay. I can't sell microservices. I need a package.
The service of logistics
Oh, you mean to say the business model, the business model.
can be applied to any, and especially in retail, like competitors of Amazon buying this service.
I think, as far as logistics is concerned, supply chain and logistics, the business model is known to everyone. Everybody knows what Amazon does. The technology is where the differentiator. Okay. People do last mile delivery. You can get, if you see the Amazon's last mile. I was talking to a third party logistic provider in Brazil called Total Express. Total Express handles the 90% of the volume in Brazilian 3PL market. And their last mile is not even a 70% or 30%. I mean, it was so pathetic compared to our last mile delivery, where, you will get, like, if our last mile delivery guy gets lost in the delivery, he will immediately get a message that you take the right turn on the left and go there. And if our last mile delivery guy doesn't find an owner at the house, and if there is an instruction that don't leave the package at the gate, that solution will happen right there. They will call the owner and say, what do I do? Do I drop it there? I have no way of coming back. That last mile is so well integrated. It's the technology. It's not the process. What we do is known to everyone. It's the ability to execute it through technology.
The last mile deliveries were done by private car owners.
Right.
This was prior to these blue trucks coming up.
Even right now, many of them are entrepreneurs. None of them are AWS employees. I am an entrepreneur. I buy three trucks and I say, I become your last mile delivery guy. And I have my brother, sister, and half brother just engage with me in the process.
And that's it. They have certain rates for certain miles. So some of them are good because they're in a cluster, but sometimes you are cut off because of the time constraints. You need to be here in the next 5 minutes, and if you screw up on the first two,
Then you're done.
yeah, but your whole, and sometimes they rate you poorly, so they don't give you more load for the next day. And I think that's where things get a little dicey.
But I think that's where the technology, this is called rerouting, the routing problem. The routing is happening real time in the Amazon application. Even though I'm an entrepreneur, Amazon gives me an application where it immediately reroutes. If I reach a door and customer says they don't leave the package at my door, what next do I do? There will be systematic support right there in the application. They'll say that, let me do this. The technology supports them in and out so that, and secondly, the biggest problem with routing is that many times the truckers use their own knowledge about the geography and not use the route. That's where they get penalized. Many of the people use their own judgment and say, oh no, this is the next street, let me go. But system will say that no, you go there first. When they override the system suggested route and use their own geographical knowledge, that's where their rating goes down and they get out of the business. If you stick to what system says, invariably you will reach your targets. Exactly. Exactly. Right. And when I was talking to Brazilians, they had the same problem. The adherence to the system suggested route is an industry-wide problem. Everywhere who deals with last mile delivery will have the truckers using their own geographical knowledge. They will not follow that. They'll go on their own route and all of a sudden they are an hour late.
For delays, sometimes you come into a bank and then it's the bank and the bank is closed.
Exactly. And you get penalized because it becomes a next day delivery.
Yeah.
Question, you're talking about scaling up. Say, for purpose of discussion, you want to import, say, popcorn. And then 7-Eleven.
Mm-hmm.
And have the packing equipment set up for packaging, bagging, wrapping, palleting.
Everything, nothing to be done. You tell me where do I have to pick it up and you tell me where do I need to deliver. Everything in between. Shipment, first mile, middle mile, last mile, packaging, repackaging, unpackaging. Amazon will agree to the fact that they won't even have an Amazon logo on the package. In multi-channel fulfillment, if you agree, Amazon will ship your product with no logo of Amazon, just a blank box. If you believe that your branding has to happen, we'll do that as well. If you want the product from Taiwan to be sold here somewhere in Chicago, and you have no supply chain setup for that, no issue at all. Everything will be done by Amazon. Absolutely everything.
And you would still be very cost effective compared to if somebody else would.
Absolutely. If you try and set up supply chain on your own, it will be 3 years before even a small transaction happens. And this Amazon way of doing it, it's so optimal. And Amazon has a tendency to pass the benefits to the customer. And you might have seen in AWS as well, many times we reduce the EC2 prices, we reduce the RDS prices. Amazon is pretty ethical about that part, that if I make $1 more, I'll send 10 cents more to my customers back, for an example. So I have all the reasons to believe that if you set up if you're a small company, if you're a large multi-billion-dollar organization, you can probably set up your supply chain, not an issue. But I have an entrepreneur, and if I'm trying to get something from overseas vendor to here, I would be better off if I use Amazon as a starting point. And as my business grows, as my processes get matured, I can probably have my own assets.
Especially starting up, and then you just want to stay.
Okay,
Capital outlay.
exactly. Like Amazon business that I talked about, what Amazon business is. Let's just say I'm a Hilton Hotels, okay? And Hilton Hotels buys all those shampoos. When you go to the room, there is shampoo and all those things they buy. They buy it through Amazon business. They say business, they tell Amazon business that these are the 10, 15 items across my geographies that I buy. These are my vendors. You look at my safety stock and my stock, and you procure them, ship them, and make that happen. And they maintain the Amazon business website will maintain the catalog, will allow you to approve only the items that you approve can be bought. So nobody can buy the products that Hilton hasn't approved so far. So it's a personalized catalog that you get. Shipment gets delivered, and over and above, Amazon business gives you 1 month worth of a credit. So 1 month worth of a credit. So if vendor has shipped a product today, you pay Amazon 30 days after that. So you get to use that cash for 30 days. And the more you buy, it becomes 30 days to 45 days to 60 days. Exactly.
Like a trial before you buy.
No, you have to put your business card, you have to put your bank account into the process before you can. It's not like you don't have any financial relationship.
Yeah.
You have a financial relationship, but you pay Amazon only after a month. 30 days you use their money for whatever the one that you want to use. Exactly. And the more you buy, the larger the size, the greater the credit. This is what I learned when I was in Phoenix few days back.
More complicated regulatory approvals.
That is exactly where Amazon business provides a catalog and an approval capability that Hilton procurement people will not be able to buy any item that Hilton corporate has not approved. Okay. And only you can even assign a vendor that these item can only be bought from these vendor. Okay. You can create your own rules. We are simply the person who goes there, buys on your behalf, and ships it to your location. And in the process, I give you a 30 days worth of a credit. That's the
I'd
value.
like to know more about
Exactly. So Hilton Hotel doesn't have to have procurement staff. For the small companies, they don't need those staffs.
No, it doesn't have its own ERP system.
We have we don't call it ERP. We have a system. No, we don't have SAP. We don't have Oracle. We don't have PeopleSoft. No, we have our own system, which is millions of microservices functioning together in EKS, ECS, everywhere. I think Margaret is just here to give us an indication that it's time for you guys to pack up your bags.
that's verbal.
Yeah. So Margaret is nice enough to tell us that enough is enough. We will meet some other time.
This is awesome. I think I undersold the topic.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I do have a desire to come here for the logistic digital twin, which is going to be in my opinion, being an Amazonian, nobody in Amazon has created so far. It's going to be phenomenal. Maybe November, you never know. But I want more people. Like 250 people are not enough. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful to you all. Thank you, Margaret.